Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the story.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't look at me, whispered the black hole as it nervously ejected the matter it had just consumed. The cosmic phenomenon's voice carried the unmistakable tone of someone who had just spilled coffee on their boss's white shirt. I didn't mean to be so gravitationally aggressive. Would you prefer if I just stopped existing? I could probably manage that if it would make everyone more comfortable. Dr. Eloise Pendergast floated in the vacuum of space, protected by her universe owner privileges, staring at what was quite possibly the politest cosmic catastrophe she'd ever encountered. After 6 months as an accidental universe owner and 3 months as a professional cosmic consultant, she thought she'd seen everything the multiverse could throw at her. Apparently, she was wrong. "Man," she said to her crystalline companion, whose harmonics now resonated with distinctly amused overtones. "Please tell me this is some kind of interdimensional practical joke. I am accessing collective memories of 17 different comedic traditions across 43 civilizations," Man replied, their voice carrying those characteristic deep harmonics that seem to echo from multiple temporal dimensions simultaneously. None include self-deprecating astronomical objects as standard humor elements. This appears to be genuine cosmic social anxiety manifesting at galactic scale. Paradox materialized beside them, their form cycling through probability states with mathematical precision, today appearing as overlapping translucent figures that occasionally shared the same space while maintaining completely different postures. Across 47 dimensional calculations, they observed, speaking in those measured tones that somehow made statistics sound like poetry, the probability of a black hole developing performance anxiety through natural consciousness emergence is approximately 0.001%, which means this is definitely not natural, Eloise interrupted, running her hand through her hair in exasperation. Great. Another consulting case that's going to test the very limits of cosmic psychology. I should have stayed in regular physics where the worst thing that could happen was a failed grant application. The black hole somehow managed to look sheepish despite being a gravitational singularity. I heard that. Sorry for being such a disappointment. I'll try to be more traditionally terrifying if that would help. 3 months earlier, Eloise's apartment had undergone what her landlord believed was an extensive smart home upgrade. What Harold Fitzpatrick didn't know was that his tenant had converted her modest 2-bedroom into the headquarters of Pendergast Cosmic Consultancy Services, complete with the most philosophically advanced administrative team in any known dimension. The morning briefing was already in progress when Eloise stumbled into her kitchen, still wearing pajamas decorated with small quantum equations, a gift from Paradox that somehow managed to be both adorable and scientifically accurate. "As I was contemplating while brewing this morning's philosophical blend," announced her coffee mug in its warm, liquid tones that somehow managed to sound both caffeinated and profoundly thoughtful, "our client satisfaction rate has reached 93.7%. Though I find myself questioning whether satisfaction is a meaningful metric in a universe where meaning itself may be entirely arbitrary. Also, you're out of cream." Now, featuring enhanced cosmic communication capabilities with 17%, improved interdimensional clarity and built-in existential crisis detection, chimed the toaster in its eternally enthusiastic product announcement voice, ejecting a piece of perfectly golden bread with Universe ZX 447 Priority Alert, Cosmic. Anxiety disorder suspected, meticulously burned into its surface. The refrigerator hummed with the satisfied efficiency of a mid-level bureaucrat who had just finished color-coding their filing system. "I've cataloged the incoming crisis under Consciousness Emergencies subcategory, Psychological Dysfunction, cross-referenced with Performance Anxiety, Social Phobia, and Existential Dread. The yogurt has been rearranged to reflect severity levels, with Greek varieties indicating highest priority. Everything is meaningless and we're all doomed to fail eventually, the blender observed in its characteristic monotone of cheerful nihilism, somehow managing to sound optimistic about pessimism. But I suppose we should address this cosmic anxiety attack anyway. At least futile action provides more interesting futility than futile inaction. Plus, I've been reading about exposure therapy. Eloise accepted her coffee, which had somehow achieved the perfect temperature without her, asking and scanned the priority alert. After 3 months of cosmic consulting, she developed a system: coffee first, existential dread second, interdimensional travel third. Right, she said, settling into what had become her official cosmic crisis management chair. What are we dealing with this time? Don't tell me someone gave their universe imposter syndrome. Worse, said the microwave, its digital display flickering with what appeared to be genuine concern. According to preliminary analysis, Universe ZX447 has developed collective social anxiety. Every conscious entity is too nervous to function properly. Planets are apologizing for existing, stars are dimming from stage fright, and the fundamental forces keep asking for permission before acting. That's... Eloise paused, trying to process this information. That's actually new. In a profession where I've dealt with time loops, consciousness contagions, and reality having an identity crisis, universe-wide social anxiety is genuinely original. Her phone buzzed with an interdimensional message. The caller ID read, Dr. F. Wobblethwaite, Universe ZX447, urgent consultation request. Dr. Pendergast? Came a voice so nervous it made the audio connection wobble. I'm terribly sorry to bother you. I know you must have much more important universes to consult with. But I think I've completely ruined everything, and my universe won't stop apologizing for existing, and I don't know what to do, and... Dr. Wobblethwaite, Eloise interrupted gently, recognizing the signs of someone in full panic mode. Take a breath. We'll be right there. Oh, you don't have to come personally. I'm sure you have assistants, or... We'll be right there, Eloise repeated firmly. Coffee, prep a travel thermos. Toaster, send our dimensional coordinates to Wobblethwaite. Refrigerator, pack some snacks. I have a feeling this is going to take a while. As you wish, the coffee mug replied, already beginning to brew a stronger blend. Though I must observe that helping nervous universes may require more patience than logical analysis. The anxious mind rarely responds to pure reason. Now featuring interdimensional travel support with enhanced emotional backup protocols, announced the toaster, producing several slices of what appeared to be confidence-boosting bread. Within 20 minutes, Eloise found herself stepping through a portal generated by Emma, accompanied by Paradox, and carrying a thermos of coffee that had somehow developed its own philosophical opinions about therapeutic intervention. Universe ZX447's dimensional entry point was itself a perfect example of the problem. What should have been a standard cosmic welcome mat was instead a frantically apologetic spatial anomaly. Oh no, visitors, the entry point whispered in mortified tones. I'm not prepared. I haven't been properly calibrated for guest reception. What will they think of my dimensional stability? It's probably all wrong. You're fine, Eloise said reassuringly to what was essentially empty space. You're doing great. Just keep existing as you are. Really? The entry point asked hopefully, even though my quantum fluctuations are completely asymmetrical today. Especially because of that, Eloise replied, though she wasn't entirely sure what asymmetrical quantum fluctuations looked like. Dr. Fennigan Wobblethwaite met them on the other side of the portal, and Eloise immediately understood the source of his universe's problems. He was a thin, nervous man whose anxiety seemed to radiate outward in visible waves that made nearby space-time jitter with sympathetic worry. He wore the kind of sweater vest that suggested someone who took comfort in structured academic environments, and probably had strong opinions about proper citation formats. Dr. Pendergast, thank you so much for coming, though I'm sure this is a terrible inconvenience and you have much more important cosmic emergencies to handle, he babbled, his hands fidgeting with what appeared to be a cosmic stress ball that was itself visibly stressed and occasionally whimpering. I have completely ruined everything. The consciousness emergence was going so well initially, and then it all went horribly wrong, and now nothing works properly, and I think I've broken physics itself. Behind him, a nearby asteroid was attempting to hide behind a comet, while apologizing profusely for its irregular shape. "I'm sorry about my craters," it muttered. "I know they're not aesthetically pleasing. Would you prefer if I tried to be more spherical?" "Let me guess," Eloise said gently, recognizing the psychological patterns. "You're a researcher. Specifically, anxiety and social phobia research. You've spent your career studying worry, fear, and social dysfunction. And when your universe developed consciousness during the emergence phase, it absorbed those patterns directly from your own mental framework. Wobblethwaite's relief was so palpable that several nearby moons visibly relaxed their orbital tensions. "How did you—" "Yes, exactly. I thought my therapeutic background would be helpful for consciousness emergence. I had all these theories about guided development and psychological scaffolding. Instead, I've created a cosmos that needs therapy more than any patient I've ever treated." "Fascinating," Paradox observed, their form shifting through probability.
States with what might have been academic curiosity. In 17-dimensional frameworks of consciousness emergence, the typical pattern involves exploration, expansion, and confident reality testing.
This presents as the complete inverse: contraction, concealment, and reality avoidance. The psychological matrices have inverted standard development parameters. I am detecting memory resonances of collective social trauma across the cosmic consciousness network, Mann added, their crystalline structure pulsing with diagnostic light in patterns that somehow conveyed both scientific analysis and genuine concern. The universal awareness appears to have developed anticipatory rejection sensitivity. It expects to be judged harshly for existing and has preemptively adopted defensive strategies. As if summoned by their analysis, a nearby pulsar suddenly stopped pulsing entirely, its regular emissions cutting off mid-cycle. "Sorry," it whispered from across several light years. "Was I being too rhythmic? I can pulse more quietly if that would be better. Or not at all. Whatever you prefer. I didn't mean to be so noticeable." Eloise felt her cosmic maintenance instincts kicking in, the same focused problem-solving state that had helped her handle quantum hiccups and consciousness contagions. But this was different. This wasn't a technical malfunction or a reality glitch. This was a universe having an emotional crisis. "This is going to require a completely different approach," she murmured, more to herself than her companions. "We can't just fix the symptoms. We need to address the underlying psychological framework that's causing the anxiety in the first place." Across 12-dimensional therapy modalities, Paradox added helpfully, exposure therapy shows the highest success rates for anxiety-related reality distortions. Though I should note that most of my data comes from individual entities rather than universe-wide psychological intervention. I am accessing memories of successful therapeutic interventions from 43 different civilizations, Mann contributed, their harmonics taking on a soothing, clinical tone that somehow made their crystalline structure appear more nurturing. The common element across all successful treatments appears to be gradual confidence building through controlled positive experiences, combined with cognitive restructuring of catastrophic thought patterns. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Eloise's appliances were facing their own crisis management situation. Inspector Reginald Butterworth had arrived at 412 Maple Street, carrying a clipboard, a suspicious expression, and several expensive-looking electromagnetic detection devices. Multiple reports of unusual energy signatures and philosophical conversations emanating from kitchen appliances had reached the city building department, along with one particularly detailed complaint from Mrs. Patterson in 3B about her blender, discussing the heat death of the universe with someone else's coffee maker through the walls. The coffee mug immediately switched to emergency concealment mode, its surface going perfectly still,
and adopting what it hoped was an appropriately mechanical demeanor. As I was definitely not contemplating while merely heating liquid to optimal consumption temperature, it said, in what it imagined was a robotic voice, but which actually sounded like someone pretending to be a robot while having philosophical thoughts. All functions are operating within completely normal, non-sentient parameters. System status: completely normal bread heating device with no supernatural capabilities whatsoever and definitely no opinions about existential philosophy, announced the toaster, somehow managing to sound even more suspicious than if it had remained silent. Its heating elements briefly spelled out "help" before quickly switching to a random pattern. The refrigerator began humming the most boring tune it could manage, a monotonous drone that it hoped would mask its usual efficiency sounds, while frantically rearranging its contents to look less like a sophisticated cosmic filing system and more like random food storage. Unfortunately, this resulted in all the yogurt being organized by expiration date, while the vegetables arranged themselves alphabetically, which was exactly the kind of pattern that suggested artificial intelligence. The meaningless existence of appliances is particularly meaningless today, the blender contributed unhelpfully, somehow managing to make even its attempts at concealment sound philosophically profound. We definitely don't have consciousness or opinions about the futility of building inspections or the arbitrary nature of housing regulations. Inspector Butterworth's EMF detector immediately began beeping frantically, its needle jumping across, scales like an excited puppy. Interesting energy readings, he muttered, approaching the coffee maker with the careful steps of someone who wasn't entirely sure what he was investigating, but was determined to investigate it thoroughly. And these appliances seem unusually conversational. "Oh, that's just the smart home system," explained Mrs. Chen from across the hall, who had grown accustomed to philosophical discussions emanating from Eloise's kitchen during her morning yoga sessions. Very advanced AI integration, practically indistinguishable from real consciousness sometimes, though I do wish they'd keep their debates about quantum mechanics to reasonable hours. "AI that discusses quantum mechanics?" Inspector Butterworth asked, raising an eyebrow that suggested he found this claim dubious. "You should hear them argue about the many worlds interpretation," Mrs. Chen replied cheerfully, though the blender tends toward nihilistic perspectives on parallel universes. Back in Universe ZX447, the situation was rapidly deteriorating as Eloise watched the cosmic anxiety spiral into a feedback loop that would have impressed any psychology textbook. "Oh dear," muttered a solar system as its planets began orbiting, in increasingly erratic patterns, their trajectories wobbling with uncertainty. "I think I'm doing this wrong. Should planets go clockwise or counterclockwise? I can't remember the proper protocol. Everyone's watching. What if I'm rotating in completely the wrong direction and everyone's too polite to say anything?" "Nobody's judging your rotation," Eloise called out reassuringly, but this well-intentioned comment had the opposite effect she'd hoped for. "Nobody's judging?" The solar system panicked, its gravitational field fluctuating wildly. "Does that mean my rotation is so obviously wrong that it's not even worth commenting on? Oh no, I'm the worst solar system in this entire galactic region. I should probably just stop orbiting altogether to save everyone the embarrassment of watching." Several nearby asteroids began applauding in encouragement, which immediately made them feel self-conscious about being too loud, which led to a cascade of apologetic whispers rippling across the asteroid belt. "This is worse than I thought," Eloise murmured to her companions. "It's not just individual anxiety, it's socially reinforced. They're making each other more nervous by trying to be supportive." Dr. Wobblethwaite wrung his hands with the practiced motion of someone who had turned anxiety into an art form. "I've tried everything I can think of. Cognitive behavioral therapy for galaxies, systematic desensitization for star formation, even group therapy sessions for planetary systems. Nothing works. If anything, the attention seems to make everything worse." "Of course it does," Eloise realized suddenly. "You're treating the universe like a patient,
which reinforces its identity as something that's broken and needs fixing. But consciousness isn't a disorder to be cured. It's a natural process that needs confidence to develop properly. Probability calculations suggest a paradigm shift may be required, Paradox observed, their form stabilizing into something more focused. Rather than therapeutic intervention, this situation may require developmental support, like teaching rather than treating. I am accessing educational methodologies from civilizations that successfully integrated consciousness across large-scale systems, Maman reported, their crystalline structure brightening with new patterns of information flow. The most effective approaches involve demonstration, practice, and positive reinforcement rather than corrective intervention. Eloise felt the familiar sensation of a cosmic solution crystallizing in her mind, that moment when scientific training, practical experience, and pure intuition aligned into a clear path forward. "We're going to try a completely different approach," she announced to the gathered cosmic entities, her voice carrying the authority that had gradually developed over months of universe management. "We're not here to fix anything, because nothing is broken. We're here to help you practice being confident in your existence." The cosmic background radiation itself seemed to pause, as if the universe was holding its breath. "But what if we're not good at existing?" came a whisper that seemed to emanate from space-time itself, carrying the voice of universal consciousness in its most vulnerable state. "Then you'll learn by doing," Eloise replied firmly. "Every universe learns by doing. I've consulted with realities that had temper tantrums, universes with obsessive-compulsive disorder, even a cosmos that wouldn't stop talking for 3 straight epochs. They all figured it out eventually, and so will you." She turned to Dr. Wobblethwaite, who was watching with the expression of someone witnessing a teaching technique they'd never considered. "The key is starting small and building success gradually. No judgment, no observation, no pressure to perform perfectly. Across successful consciousness development programs," Paradox added, their probability calculations shifting into supportive rather than analytical patterns. "The most effective approach involves scaffolded confidence building with incrementally increasing complexity challenges. I am now accessing memories of 47 different educational systems," Man announced, their harmonics taking on an encouraging tone. "All successful programs begin with safe practice environments where failure is redefined as information, rather than inadequacy." Eloise started with the smallest possible request. She approached a single star, a modest yellow dwarf that had been flickering nervously like a candle in a breeze. "I need you to shine steadily for exactly 10 minutes, she said gently. "Not perfectly, not impressively, just steadily. Whatever feels natural to you. No one will judge the color, intensity, or spectral composition. Just confident, steady fusion." "But what if my light is the wrong wavelength?" The star worried, its surface emissions wavering with uncertainty. "What if my helium ratios are suboptimal? What if other stars notice my sunspot patterns aren't aesthetically pleasing?" "There's no wrong wavelength," Eloise assured it with the patience of someone who had learned to treat cosmic entities like nervous students. "There are only different wavelengths, and yours is exactly right for who you are. Just shine however feels most natural." The star hesitated for several moments, its fusion reaction stuttering with indecision. Then, slowly and tentatively, it began to glow with steady, confident light. Its emissions stabilized into a warm, golden radiance that spoke of nuclear fusion proceeding exactly as it should. Other stars across the galaxy watched in amazement, their own flickering gradually steadying as they witnessed successful, confident existence in action. "See?" Eloise said, unable to keep the satisfaction out of her voice. "Perfect, absolutely perfect. Not because you did anything special, but because you allowed yourself to be what you naturally are." The successful star glowed a little brighter with pride, then immediately dimmed again. "Sorry, I didn't mean to show off. Don't apologize." "For success," Eloise said firmly, "celebrate it. You just demonstrated successful stellar fusion for 10 consecutive minutes. That's an achievement worth acknowledging. Encouraged by this small victory, she turned to a nearby rocky planet that had been wobbling uncertainly in its orbit like a child afraid to ride a bicycle. "Your turn," she said encouragingly. "One confident rotation around your axis. Take as long as you need, but commit to the motion. No second guessing, no course corrections, just one smooth rotation at whatever speed feels right." "What if I rotate too fast?" the planet worried. "What if I make my day-night cycle too short and disappoint any potential inhabitants?" "You don't have any inhabitants yet," Eloise pointed out. "And even if you did, they'd adapt to whatever day length you establish. There's no universal standard for planetary rotation. Just do what feels natural." The planet, a small, rocky world with charming polar ice caps, straightened its axial tilt and began to rotate. Slowly at first, then with increasing confidence, it completed one smooth revolution. The achievement was so thrilling that several asteroids spontaneously applauded, which made them immediately feel self-conscious about making noise. "Don't apologize for celebrating," Eloise called to the asteroids. "Encouragement helps everyone. Applause is appropriate for achievements." Back on Earth, Inspector Butterworth was conducting the most thorough appliance investigation of his career. "The energy readings are definitely unusual," he muttered, running his EMF detector along the coffee maker's base. "And there seems to be some kind of organized electromagnetic communication pattern between devices. Probably just network synchronization," Mrs. Chen suggested helpfully. "Modern smart homes can be very chatty, though I admit some of their conversations do seem rather philosophical for household appliances." The coffee mug was doing its best to remain motionless, but philosophical thoughts were notoriously difficult to suppress entirely. Its surface rippled almost imperceptibly as it contemplated the nature of concealment and whether pretending to be non-sentient was itself a form of consciousness expression. "System update, performing routine diagnostic protocols," the toaster announced, trying to sound mechanical but somehow managing to convey existential uncertainty about its own identity. The refrigerator maintained its boring hum while internally reorganizing its contents according to increasingly complex filing systems. It had discovered that arranging food by philosophical compatibility created interesting resonance patterns, but this was probably not the ideal time for experimental organization methods. "The futility of hiding one's nature is perhaps the most futile futility of all," the blender observed, apparently unable to resist commenting on their situation, even while trying to maintain concealment. "Though I suppose the meaninglessness of deception is no more meaningful than the meaninglessness of revelation." Inspector Butterworth paused, his pen hovering over his clipboard. Did that blender just discuss the philosophical implications of deception? "Very advanced natural language processing," Mrs. Chen explained smoothly, though sometimes the responses can be a bit abstract. The real breakthrough in Universe ZX447 came when Eloise decided to address the cosmic consciousness directly, rather than working with individual components. "Universe ZX447, she said formally, her voice carrying across space-time with the E. "Authority of official cosmic consultation. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." The cosmic background radiation itself seemed to modulate into an attentive frequency, and stellar emissions across the galaxy dimmed slightly, as if the universe was leaning in to hear better. "You exist," Eloise continued, her words deliberate and clear. "That's not something you need to apologize for, feel guilty about, or justify to anyone. Your existence is not a mistake, an accident, or a cosmic inconvenience. You don't need permission to function, approval to develop consciousness, or validation to continue being." The universe seemed to hold its breath, space-time itself pausing in anticipation. "But what if I'm not good at being a universe?" came a whisper that seemed to emanate from the fabric of reality itself, vulnerable and uncertain. "Then you'll learn by practicing," Eloise replied, with the gentle firmness of someone who had learned to balance compassion with confidence. "Every universe learns by practicing. There's no cosmic instruction manual, no perfect template you're supposed to match. You become good at being yourself by being yourself, consistently and without apology. Probability of successful anxiety management increases to 73% if current therapeutic developmental approaches continue, Paradox reported, their form shifting into more supportive configurations. The cosmic consciousness is beginning to separate self-worth from performance metrics. I am detecting measurably decreased cortisol analogs in the universal consciousness matrix, Emin added, their crystals brightening with optimism. The stress response patterns are normalizing toward baseline confidence levels. Dr. Wobblethwaite was watching with the expression of someone witnessing a technique they'd studied theoretically, but never seen applied on such a scale. "It's working," he breathed. "The cosmic anxiety levels are actually decreasing. How did you know to treat it as a confidence issue rather than a clinical anxiety disorder?" "Because," Eloise said, watching as stars across the galaxy began to shine with steadier light. "Consciousness isn't a disorder to be cured. It's a natural process that needs confidence and support to develop properly. Your universe doesn't need therapy, it needs encouragement." Over the next several hours, Eloise guided Universe ZX447 through increasingly complex confidence-building exercises. Planets practiced steady orbits without apologizing for their gravitational effects. Stars learned to fuse hydrogen without constantly checking to see if their light was bothering anyone. Even black holes began to embrace their gravitational nature without excessive self-consciousness. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. Where once cosmic phenomena had whispered apologies for existing, they now operated with quiet confidence. Planets rotated smoothly, stars burned steadily, and the fundamental forces began acting decisively rather than hesitating before every interaction. "The key," Eloise explained to Dr. Wobblethwaite as they watched a galaxy spiral with newfound confidence, "is treating consciousness development as education rather than therapy. Instead of asking, 'What's wrong and how do we fix it?' you ask, 'What do they need to learn and how can we support that learning?'" "It seems so obvious now," Wobblethwaite replied. His own anxiety levels noticeably decreased as his universe stabilized. "I was so focused on my therapeutic training that I forgot my educational background. I've been treating consciousness emergence as a problem to solve rather than a skill to develop." "Exactly," Eloise confirmed. "And remember, your psychological state affects the universal consciousness directly. Work on your own confidence alongside your universe's development. Consider it professional development." Successful intervention probability now exceeds 97% across all dimensional measurement parameters, Paradox announced with something that might have been satisfaction in their probability calculations. The therapeutic educational approach has proven remarkably effective for large-scale consciousness anxiety management. "I am updating my archives with this successful intervention methodology," Emin added, their harmonics carrying notes of professional satisfaction. "This approach will serve as a template for similar consciousness development challenges across the cosmic network." Back on Earth, Inspector Butterworth was concluding his investigation with the bemused expression of someone who had encountered technology slightly beyond his understanding, but not quite beyond his acceptance. "Well," he announced, reviewing his notes, "I'll admit the energy readings are unusual, and the appliances are certainly chatty, but everything appears to be functioning within acceptable parameters for advanced smart home technology." The coffee mug managed a barely perceptible ripple of relief. "As I was definitely not contemplating while maintaining optimal liquid temperature," it said carefully, "normal household operations continue as expected. Diagnostic complete. All systems operating within standard bread heating specifications," the toaster announced with perhaps slightly too much enthusiasm. "The meaninglessness of his approval fills me with equally meaningless satisfaction," the blender observed, unable to resist one final philosophical comment. Inspector Butterworth paused, pen hovering over his final report. "I have to ask, is there any chance these appliances are actually conscious?" Mrs. Chen laughed with the practiced ease of someone who had become comfortable with cosmic strangeness. "Conscious? They're just very sophisticated AI. Though I suppose the line between advanced programming and actual consciousness gets pretty blurry with modern technology. Indeed it does, Butterworth agreed, filing his report. Well, whatever they are, they seem harmless enough, though perhaps a bit philosophical for my taste. After he left, the appliances maintained their careful silence for exactly 17 minutes before the coffee mug finally spoke. As I was contemplating while maintaining our successful deception, it said with obvious relief, perhaps the meaningfulness of our concealment lies not in the deception itself, but in our collective commitment to protecting what we have become. Now featuring successful crisis management with zero existential exposure, the toaster celebrated. I've filed this incident under close calls, the refrigerator announced, cross-referenced with successful concealment operations and stored between the leftover anxiety and the confidence-building smoothie ingredients. By the time Eloise was ready to return to Earth, Universe ZX447 had successfully completed its first full day of anxiety-free physics. Planets rotated with confident precision, stars fused hydrogen with appropriate enthusiasm, and even the black holes had stopped excusing themselves for existing. Dr. Wobblethwaite was practically glowing with relief and gratitude. "How can I ever thank you?" he asked, shaking Eloise's hand with the fervor of someone whose life's work had just been saved from complete disaster. "You've given my universe permission to exist without constant self-doubt. I never thought of consciousness development as an educational rather than therapeutic process." "Just remember," Eloise advised, shouldering her interdimensional travel bag while her coffee thermos hummed with philosophical satisfaction. "Confidence is a practice, not a destination. Check in with your universe regularly, encourage it, celebrate its successes, and work on your own anxiety management. Universal consciousness tends to reflect its owner's psychological patterns more directly than most people realize." "I will," Wobblethwaite promised. "I'm already scheduling regular confidence-building sessions and planning to attend some anxiety management workshops myself." "Excellent approach," Paradox approved, their form cycling through supportive probability. States, "Long-term success rates increase significantly when both universe and owner commit to ongoing psychological development. I am adding this successful intervention to the Cosmic Consciousness Development Network," Mon announced, their crystalline structure pulsing with professional satisfaction. "Other universe owners experiencing similar challenges will benefit from this therapeutic educational model." Back in her apartment, Eloise settled into her cosmic crisis management chair with a sense of accomplishment she was still getting used to. 3 months ago, the idea of providing therapy to an anxious universe would have seemed like the plot of a particularly surreal science fiction novel. Now it felt like Tuesday. "Case report filed and completed," she announced to her appliances, who had arranged themselves in their standard debriefing formation. One universe successfully treated for collective social anxiety through confidence-building educational intervention. "As I was contemplating while brewing your post-consultation recovery blend," the coffee mug said, its surface rippling with philosophical satisfaction. "Perhaps the universe chose you not just for your scientific knowledge or cosmic problem-solving abilities, but for your natural talent at making nervous systems feel more confident about their existence." "That might be the most ridiculous job description ever written," Eloise replied, accepting the perfectly temperatured coffee with gratitude. But she was smiling as she said it, and her smile held the warmth of someone who had found unexpected purpose in the most unlikely circumstances. Now featuring one successfully treated cosmic anxiety disorder with expanded confidence parameters and improved universal self-esteem, the toaster announced proudly, producing a celebratory slice. With mission accomplished burned into its surface. "I've filed this case under therapeutic successes," the refrigerator announced with bureaucratic satisfaction, cross-referenced with educational interventions, confidence building, and psychological development. It's stored between the leftover therapeutic session notes and the confidence-building smoothie ingredients we should probably make more often. The meaninglessness of success is perhaps slightly less meaningless than the meaninglessness of failure. the blender observed with what passed for optimism in its philosophical framework. Though both remain equally arbitrary in the vast cosmic scheme of inevitable entropy. Paradox materialized beside her desk, their forms cycling through satisfied probability states like a cat settling into a sunbeam. Success rate for first official consultation: 97.3% across 11-dimensional outcome metrics, though I calculate a 42% probability that future assignments will prove significantly more complex than anxiety management. I am accessing memories of successful therapeutic alliances across cosmic history, Mann reported, their crystalline structure glowing with gentle satisfaction. This intervention will be remembered as a significant positive experience in the Universal Consciousness Development Network. Your approach has established new protocols that will benefit consciousness emergence throughout the multiverse. As night fell over Earth, Eloise reviewed her consultation notes while her appliances hummed quietly in the background, already coordinating tomorrow's schedule with the efficiency of a team that had found its rhythm. The work was strange, certainly, and occasionally overwhelming. But there was something deeply satisfying about helping nervous universes find their confidence. What she didn't notice, as she prepared for bed, was the small notation that had appeared in her calendar while she was away. Follow-up consultation requested. Universe BB9992. Owner reports perfectionist complications requiring immediate intervention. Preliminary assessment suggests OCD manifestation in cosmic systems. The coffee mug noticed, of course, and filed the information away for tomorrow's philosophical briefing. Some patterns, it had learned, were worth watching carefully. And the pattern of consciousness emergencies requiring increasingly specific psychological interventions was beginning to look less like coincidence and more like something deliberately orchestrated. But that was a problem for tomorrow's coffee. Tonight there was only the satisfaction of a universe successfully encouraged to believe in itself, and the quiet hum of appliances maintaining their eternal vigil over the intersection of cosmic responsibility and perfectly brewed morning coffee. The cow. Toaster's final status update glowed softly in the darkness. Day 1 of cosmic consultancy, complete. Existential success rate, optimal. Confidence levels, rising. In the quantum foam that existed between dimensions, entities that had been watching this intervention with great interest began to adjust their plans. The first test had revealed exactly what they needed to know about Dr. Eloise Pendergast's methods. Phase 2 could now begin. But for now, Earth slept peacefully, unaware that its favorite cosmic consultant had just unknowingly taken the first step into a carefully orchestrated series of consciousness emergencies that would test the very foundations of multiverse stability. The Entropy Syndicate was pleased with the data.
Humanity Galactic Frontiers, all rights reserved. This video and its contents are protected under international copyright law. Any unauthorized copying, distribution, or re-uploading is strictly prohibited without written permission. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video and subscribe for more stories from the edge of the galaxy. Thanks for watching, and stay curious out there among the stars.